The stage felt enormous as the boy stepped into the spotlight, clutching his guitar tightly against his chest. He was no more than 12 or 13, his hair falling slightly into his eyes as he tried to hide the nervous flicker inside them. The audience murmured, curious about the shy figure making his way toward the microphone. He walked carefully, his small sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, and when he finally reached the center, he took a deep breath as though trying to gather courage from the very air around him. One of the judges leaned forward with a warm smile, asking his name and what he would be performing. His voice came out soft, barely louder than a whisper, but it carried honesty. He explained that music was his way of speaking when words failed him, and tonight he wanted to share one of his favorite songs, Hotel California. The crowd reacted with a mixture of surprise and anticipation. It was a bold choice, a legendary song, and few expected such a young performer to attempt it. The boy's eyes darted toward the side of the stage where his mother stood, her hands clasped tightly as if she was holding her breath for him. That one look gave him strength. He adjusted the strap of his guitar, shifted the microphone slightly closer, and placed his fingers gently on the strings. The air inside the auditorium grew still, as if the world itself was holding its breath to hear what he might do. For a long second, it was just silence, pure, heavy, and full of expectation. Then, with trembling hands and a heart beating like a drum, the boy strummed his first chord. The first strum echoed softly across the auditorium, and immediately, the silence shifted into something almost sacred. The guitar's warm, haunting tone carried the opening of Hotel California, and the boy's voice soon followed. It was gentle at first, almost fragile, yet it carried an unexpected depth that made the audience lean forward. His voice wasn't polished like a professional's, but it had something far more powerful, raw emotion. Each note carried sincerity, like he was telling his own story through the song's lyrics. The judges, who had initially expected a shaky attempt at such a classic, began exchanging surprised looks. One judge tilted his head, narrowing his eyes as though he couldn't quite believe the sound coming from such a young performer. Another pressed her hands together, captivated, her smile slowly spreading wider with every line he sang. The boy's nerves seemed to melt away with every chord. His hands, which had trembled moments earlier, moved more confidently along the strings, and his voice grew steadier. The melody wrapped around the hall, filling it with something timeless. People in the audience shifted in their seats, caught in the unexpected spell. Some smiled, others closed their eyes, letting the music take them back to memories the song had once carried for them. By the time he reached the first chorus, a quiet murmur rippled through the crowd, not chatter, but soft gasps of admiration. A song they had heard countless times was suddenly new again, reborn through the voice of a child who sang it like it was etched into his soul. It wasn't just a performance, it was a moment. As the boy reached the heart of Hotel California, his performance transformed. What began as a timid attempt now burned with confidence and emotion. His voice, no longer shaky, rang out clear and soulful, carrying the lyrics with surprising power. The guitar seemed alive in his hands, every strum bolder than the last, every note echoing with a passion far beyond his years. The audience couldn't help themselves, they started clapping softly in rhythm, then louder, until the entire hall pulsed with energy. Some stood, swaying to the melody, while others wiped away unexpected tears. The atmosphere shifted from silent awe to a communal celebration, all united by the music pouring from the stage. The judges were completely captivated. One leaned back, shaking his head in disbelief, whispering to another, "This kid is something special." Another judge had her hand pressed against her chest, her eyes glassy as if the song had awakened something deeply personal inside her. They weren't just listening, they were feeling every word. On stage, the boy was lost in the song. His eyes closed, his brow furrowed in concentration, and his voice soared with the kind of freedom only true artists discover. The world around him seemed to dissolve, the cameras, the lights, the crowd, leaving only him and the music. He wasn't performing anymore, he was living the song, breathing its story into existence. When he strummed the final note of that verse, it hung in the air like a prayer, lingering in the hearts of everyone present. In that moment, the boy wasn't just a contestant on a talent show. He was a star in the making, and everyone in the room knew it. For a few seconds after the last chord, silence filled the hall. It was the kind of silence that meant no one wanted to break the spell. Then, as if the room had suddenly taken a breath, the audience erupted into thunderous applause. People leapt to their feet, clapping, cheering, and shouting his name. The boy stood frozen, wide-eyed, his small hands gripping the guitar tightly as though afraid it was all a dream. The judges rose from their seats, each of them smiling with admiration. One of them leaned forward, their hand hovering above the golden button. The boy glanced nervously toward them, his chest heaving, still unsure of what to expect. And then, it happened. With a firm slam, the judge pressed the golden buzzer. In an instant, golden confetti burst from above, filling the air in shimmering streams. The lights reflected off each piece, turning the entire stage into a scene of magic. The boy gasped, dropping his guitar slightly as his hands flew to his face. Tears welled in his eyes as he spun slowly, watching the golden rain fall around him. The audience grew even louder, their cheers blending with the triumphant music that played overhead. His mother rushed from backstage, wrapping him in a tight embrace as both cried tears of joy. The boy's small shoulders shook against her, overwhelmed by the moment he never thought possible. One of the judges leaned toward the microphone, their voice filled with emotion. That was not just a performance. That was an experience. You sang from your soul, and you touched every single person in this room tonight. The boy's dream had just transformed into reality, in a single golden moment. Golden confetti still floated gently through the air as the boy stood at center stage, hardly believing what had just happened. His cheeks were wet with tears, his hands trembling as his mother held him close. The crowd's cheers refused to die down, instead, they grew louder, turning into chants of his name. Some in the audience even sang the chorus of Hotel California back to him, their voices echoing in unison, making the moment feel timeless. The judges, now standing at the edge of their table, clapped with pride. One judge leaned into the microphone and said, "You've given us a moment we will never forget. You're not just a boy with a guitar, you're an artist with a gift." Another added, "This is why we press the golden buzzer. This is why these shows exist, for voices like yours that come once in a lifetime." Backstage, the crew exchanged knowing glances, they all realized they had witnessed something far greater than just an audition. Social media was already buzzing. Clips of his performance spreading like wildfire, comments flooding in with words like angelic, soulful, and beyond his years. When the confetti finally settled, the boy lifted his head. His voice, still shaky from emotion, whispered to his mother, "I finally feel seen." Those 5 words captured the heart of the entire journey. He had walked onto the stage as a shy, uncertain child, but he was leaving it as a star in the making. As he took his final bow that night, the audience on their feet and the judges still applauding, it was clear that this was only the beginning. The boy who sang Hotel California would be remembered forever, not just for the song, but for the soul he poured into it.